we have to fight them. So we're going to punch them in the face. It's like, okay, are you sure you want to do this? Yeah, we want to punch them in the face. And I was like, okay, they're thundering towards you and you turn and you punch them square across the face. And they were like, well, we learned as much as we could have. And I was like, oh no, there was so much more that you could have found out. You get the chance to because you punched someone. Real world consequence of that is you get kicked out. Like, they're not going to be like, yeah, stay for dinner, punch some more people. Like, they're going to kick you out of this location.
Hey, welcome to Imagine This. This is a podcast about what's possible in classrooms. I'm Dylan, and I work with a team called Classmate. We're from Vancouver, BC, and we help schools succeed with technology. I'm here with my colleague, Jen.
Hello.
Hi, Jen. Jen and I are both instructional technology coaches, and we work alongside educators to reimagine what's possible in their classroom and help design creative and engaging lessons. One of the amazing things about integrating tech into teaching is that when it's done in the right way, it kind of just disappears. In our time in schools, we've helped hundreds of educators bring their dreams to reality, and this podcast is a place where we're going to share some of our stories.
This week, we are speaking with Patricia Berlanga, who works at one of the schools that we support. And like many of the schools that we work with, I am there at her school once every couple of weeks. And so whenever I'm there, we get to sit down and really just ideate and plan out some of the lesson ideas that she has and then actually execute them together. And so this particular project, we've been talking about for a while, since last school year. This is one of the first projects and ideas that she came to me with because she really wanted to try integrating D&D into her classroom somehow.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes, sorry, Dungeons and Dragons. And it was the perfect time, timing-wise, because this was just after you and I had come off of like a year-long campaign where you were showing myself, Carlo on our team, Nick on our team, just a bunch of people how to play D&D. And it was a great time. And so I had a good time talking to her and figuring out just the logistics of whether or not this would work.
Shout out to the broccoli gnome that you played named Brock.
Brock.
Yeah, and that led into a D&D game that we played with a bunch of teachers.
Yeah. That
led into organizing this project. So yes. I'm really excited to hear what she has to say about this project. Why don't we talk to Patricia?
Let's do it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Imagine This podcast. My name is Dylan. I am from the Classmate team. This is a podcast about what's possible in classrooms. And I am sitting here on a lovely Tuesday morning with the wonderful Patricia Berlanga, who is a grade 7 teacher based in the Burnaby area. One of the teachers I've been most looking forward to talking to about a project that you ran in your classroom based on Dungeons and Dragons. Welcome to our podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. So happy to be here. Very excited.
I wanted to start by talking a little bit about your experience as a teacher. Could you just tell us how long you've been teaching, a little bit about your teaching style, and how you kind of like bring your interests into the classroom? One of them being obviously D&D or role-playing games.
For sure. So I've been teaching for 6 years now. I taught for 4 up in Prince Rupert, and this is my second year teaching here. I am very much a teacher who focuses on relationships and building that with the students. And so a way that I find to do that is to bring my own interest in the classrooms. Like you said, I've brought D&D in. I also really love art history, and I think it's a lot of fun to talk about the different compositions. Often when we'll look at different artists, I'll talk about like the statue of David is one of my favorite ones to talk about because it's not proportional. Like his hands are longer because that was David's thing, right? He used the slingshot to slay Goliath. So it's like bigger and it kind of draws emphasis. And we'll talk a lot about how different artists got those things. And just like different interesting facts I'll bring into different lessons that I find interesting and try and do like fun things for the kids. Like in a science PowerPoint recently, I had a spider just crawl through the screen because I was bored of notes and I thought it would be interesting.
Fantastic.
It scared some of them, but definitely made them pay attention. And like I've hidden an owl in a PowerPoint. It's like when you see the owl, raise your hand. Different things like that to try and get them more engaged in things. I love to do projects as well. I think it's more authentic learning because it's not just rote memorization. It's a lot more fun and drawing their own personalities and creativity into it.
Incredible. So a lot of your, the way that you relate with your students is through experiences.
Yeah.
Creating these like moments that might link to something that they are learning And hopefully that experience in that moment blends with the thing that they're learning. Boom.
Exactly.
You've got a new thing that you know.
Exactly. And they get excited about it too, and they want to tell you about it. It's that excited energy. And when parents come to like student-led conferences and things like that, they're more excited to show them their work, and they can actually explain like what's going on, and parents can see and play the different things that they're doing.
Yeah, that's incredible. Okay, so one of these amazing experiences is bringing in something that I haven't heard a lot of teachers actually do, which is an entire like role-playing game and experience into the classroom. I will kind of start us off because last summer you visited our office and we actually played Dungeons and Dragons with a few other teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time that you had played at a table.
Yeah, as like a character, for sure.
Yeah.
I had DM'd once for my younger brother who wanted to do it for his birthday, but this was the first time I was playing like as a character and like involving myself in the story.
Yeah. So just as a primer for our listeners, if you don't know what Dungeons and Dragons is, or you don't know what a DM is, let's just do a quick explanation. So the DM is the dungeon master. I took the role of the dungeon master when we played with, I think it was like 4 other teachers around the table. You took the position of a player. Can you remind me what your player's name was?
I was a paladin dragonborn whose name was Xochitl de la Rosa.
Oh, yeah. Incredible. And so for those of you who don't know, a dragonborn is like a dragon-looking humanoid.
Yeah.
And a paladin is like that's what you were, a paladin?
Yeah, I was a paladin.
Is like a holy warrior.
Yeah.
They're like, they go on crusades and go into battle for their religion. Okay, and so the way that D&D works at the table is the DM, in this case, it was me, presents a story. And then as a player, you are given decisions. And can you tell us how we actually like determine how those decisions work?
Well, the decision is based on your character and as well as your like score for different things.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So depending on what you want to do, there'll be like a role associated with that and like something that you add to it.
Yeah.
So for example, for a paladin, I think it's wisdom or something.
They're like into wisdom.
Yeah. So like
traditional knowledge.
Yeah. You would look at your score and be like, okay, so I'm a paladin and I want to find out this thing about my religion. And you would roll a dice and add your wisdom score. And then because that's higher, you would want to do that as opposed to like trying to smash it or like figuring it out in a different way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that's something that your character is good at.
Yeah. So your character has strengths.
Yeah.
We roll what's called a D20. It's the 20-sided dice. And we add our strengths or our weaknesses to that roll to kind of like modify how it works. And then me as the DM would tell you if it succeeds or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the story is pushed along through players making decisions that either succeed or fail.
Yeah.
So it's pretty kind of binary, and it's like succession or like succeeding or failing.
Yep.
But the story can be like quite intricate and woven because you have a bunch of players sitting at a table and everyone is trying to achieve either a common or a kind of individual goal.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So lots of opportunities for storytelling.
Yep.
Lots of opportunities for taking like the perspective of someone else.
Yes.
Or taking the perspective of your character.
Yep.
Right. And so this happened at our office. We played for like 3 or 4 hours.
I think it was more like 5 hours. We stopped for lunch because we had a late lunch.
We did, yes.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. It was such a fun time. And I'm not sure if you've stayed in contact with the other teachers that were there, but you took this into your classroom, and some of those other teachers are now starting projects in their classrooms, which is fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. One of the teachers we played with actually came to my school to teach. So we've kept in contact, and I've talked to him because he's played more D&D than I have. So when I was developing this project, I would just like pop into his classroom and be like, what is a good like difficulty class, or how hard should I make a roll?
Got it.
And he was like, okay, easy is like 10, medium is like 15, really hard is like 20. And I was like, okay, so taking that kind of into account, or I'll pop in and be like, what do you think of this? And he will give me his 2 cents. I'll be like, thank you. And then I'll leave.
So you have like a DM that moved into your school.
Yeah, basically.
Now you have like someone that you can just bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, it's very helpful. And I'll bring different things to him. So I went to the Fan Expo recently and I was looking at the different D&D games that they have. And there's one that I have that's like a coming of age one. Mm-hmm. And so I bought that that to play with one of my students just for fun. And so I like ran it by him and I was like, is this okay to do with the kids? And he was like, yeah, it seems good. So it was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So your school's becoming a small little role-playing game experiment.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. This might not be the only chat we have about this then.
Yeah.
Okay, so we played D&D together. We came up with these sort of like loose ideas of how we could bring this into the classroom.
Yep.
And later that year, I think it was like, when did this project happen?
This
October,
project happened, October, just for Halloween. I think I actually did it on Halloween or the week of Halloween.
Yeah, so you, like, beginning of the school year, were basically like, we're starting this now.
Yes.
And you started developing it, like, as school started.
Yep.
Awesome. So kind of take me through what happened when you left and you started thinking about how this might work in a classroom with, almost 30 kids in it.
I had been thinking about this project for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, we played the D&D. And after talking with everybody, I'm seeing how they played D&D. And I think some of them had D&D games in their schools.
Yeah, we had a couple of clubs.
Yeah. I really wanted to do it in the classroom because I thought it was such a fun way to teach like character as well as just like a different way of looking at things and doing things with the class.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got into school in September, right away, I was like, okay, I know I want to do this. Where can I fit this? And I figured that the simplest way for me to incorporate it was in short stories and storytelling, because a lot of D&D is this collaborative storytelling. And especially for grade 7s where they're going to move on somewhere else, of like understanding that decisions have consequences also really comes into play, right? And then based on what your character decides is their strengths and weakness will have a result that's either good or bad, right? And so like it went through so many iterations. Like at first I was like, okay, we'll do the D&D and it'll just be each kid on their own. But I have 33 students. I cannot have 33 characters and incorporate them all in a D&D story where each of them has their moment to shine. Like that was way too big. There was no way to do that. So then I decided, okay, we're going to do them in groups. Great. How do we make those characters work in those groups? How do I do the groups? Am I going to have an interactive D&D story where like they're all building puzzles? And if you're playing a character who has low intelligence, like you won't get a picture. Or if you're playing someone who's high intelligence, you'll get like the picture and like maybe a first corner piece or something like that. And so we looked at different practical elements that got so big and it was way too complicated to do. And so we're like, okay, that doesn't work. So let's go back and looking through the resources that I already had for short stories. And I saw this character kind of page that I had bought from TPT. That's like a big character poster that talks about like, oh, the wants, vices, strengths, and all of that for each character in a novel. So I had looked at that and I was like, okay, I can modify this to make it for specific characters. And so that was kind of what I chose to do with the characters. And then along with that, we talked about, okay, so do we give them the choice of class? Do we give them the choice of race? Because all of those are decisions that you get to make in D&D. It's like, okay, yeah, if we do that, then it's going to get too wide. So, okay, let's not do that. Let's stick with archetypes. Okay, how can we do this with archetypes? And because we were thinking October, okay, Halloween, what's like a good kind of Halloween-y theme for 7th graders? And then we thought Scooby-Doo is great. So then I watched a lot of Scooby-Doo.
Before we get into the Scooby-Doo, can I stop you there? Okay, so I just want to kind of make sure I'm following you. So just so everyone knows, the rule book for D&D is like 350 pages. There's a lot of rules. And then there's a separate book for players, which is another like 300 pages. So the attempt of like bringing in true Dungeons and Dragons was maybe like not the right direction to go. It was too big. And like there are resources out there online. I think Wizards of the Coast has some school resources that I took a look at and I thought about doing, but with the short amount of time that I think we had to get it done, because in the midst of this, we were also doing FSAs. So that kind of gets in the way of everything. And I did want to do it first term because it's a good way to get them excited about like characters and understanding those. And then I would go into my novel, which we talked a lot about characters and the decisions that they made and how do they relate to each other. So I really did want to do it in the beginning half of the year and taking all of that into account. And also kids
aren't going to read 300 pages of a manual
Absolutely
and trying to make it.
We need like rules that are quick and easy to understand.
Yeah.
And impactful.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think focusing on just like the one aspect of D&D of like character creation, and then from there, just character choice, I think were the two big ones, because there's so much more that you could do with them. Creating a world, setting, them running their own games as dungeon masters and all of that I think that that resource really went through for Wizards of the Coast, which is really great. But again, it's not exactly...
It wasn't what you were targeting, which is like that storytelling element.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was broader. And I think in the long run, maybe I'll do it later on, but not at the moment where I'm still learning it and trying it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think like part that is focused on most of the time in D&D is this idea of like world building or like telling a story that exists in a world that already exists.
Yeah.
So like the world of Faerun, the world of the Sword Coast, right? Like these are things that exist that you can tell a story inside of. The way that you took it was we're going to focus on characters and the character choices.
Yeah.
And we're going to use dice to help us understand those choices.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we decided we're focusing on character. We're focusing on choice. We've said no to the world building of D&D. So we're not doing like wizards and barbarians, dragonborns, which what you played, but we're instead going to focus on characters like that are within a story, and you chose Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. So
Tell me about Scooby-Doo.
I watched a lot of Scooby-Doo and really thought about kind of the breakdown of the characters as archetypes. So like looking at, okay, well, what are these characters and what do they embody? So like Fred is the leader. So what does it mean to be a leader? So with my students, I really looked at, okay, what are the qualities of a leader? Give me 2 qualities, right? And they were like courageous and confident. Great. Those are the 2 main things that we're going to focus on if we create a Fred character. Mm-hmm. Daphne character was like more of like a martial arts fashionista is kind of that like...
I love that.
Yeah. And Velma was the nerd, for lack of a better term,
right.
Like the intelligent,
high intelligence,
right?
Book smart.
Yeah. And then for Scooby and Shaggy, it was really interesting because both of them are kind of the same. They're both kind of scaredy cats, but we determined, I think it was Scooby-Doo that we said was the really loyal one to a fault. And then Shaggy is more of the comic relief of like, he's there, he does things, but he's just kind of like good with luck. I think we said luck. And then Scooby was the one where people just felt comfortable around.
Scooby was like the glue.
Yeah, kind of the loyal,
the social.
Yeah, the charismatic one, I would say.
Okay.
So we had those, what are the 5 archetypes kind of laid out. And so I had the kids come up with the archetype, tell me 2 things that each of them kind of embodied their characters. And then I think we had 4 kids per character. And I think I ended up with 8 characters.
Okay.
And so what I did is I had them write the type of character with those 2 things, and then we put them all in a hat. And then as a group, they drew one, and then that's the character they had to create. So together they created a character, and they told me what was based on those characteristics of that archetype, what was one strength and what was a weakness that they had. Mm-hmm. So like, what would they be good at and what wouldn't they be good at?
So this was like the way that they were creating like the stats of their character sheet.
Yes. Yeah. Basically.
Okay.
I didn't call it stats, and we only really had the like what you're good at and what you're bad at. And when you were good at something, it was you had advantage, so you rolled 2 d20s.
Right.
And when you were bad at it, you rolled 2, but took the one that was lower.
Right. Yeah. So advantages take the higher roll of 2. Disadvantages take the lower of 2 rolls.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
And so had them really think about that, and they had fun in creating their characters because it was also like a big poster board that kind of like taped together, so they could each take a section and really draw it out and decide. Like there were some groups I tried to keep them all girls and all boys in the groups, but some of them, just the way the classes worked out, were both boys and girls in a group. And so then there was some arguments of like, I want us to play a boy character. I want us to play a girl character. So I had them roll dice. Yeah. And I was like, who wants even? Who wants odd? And I think the boys ended up winning, and then they created a male character and so forth. But it was really fun to see them come up. Some of them took it so seriously and had like a very thought out character that made sense. Some of them was like a tutu and rainbows and was wearing like flip-flops and had like a 6'7" shirt or whatever, just like silly things.
So this was them attempting to collaborate on this.
Yeah.
Which is part of like, this is the character creation is part of this, like, let's take the perspective of the character and figure out who this person is.
Yeah.
So the decisions, even if they make something that's kind of like kooky and weird, they're now going to inform the later decisions based on this character that they've created.
Yeah, exactly. And like those archetypes, right? The like kookier ones, I believe were the Scooby and Shaggy characters.
Okay, so they leaned into it.
Yeah, which made sense. And the ones that were like more put together was like the Fred and the Daphne character. So it was really interesting to see them kind of collaborate and think about the different things of like the strengths, weaknesses, and so forth, and just do a little bit, not a whole lot, but some fleshed out characteristics of them.
This is really cool. Okay, so I just wanted to call out the Scooby-Doo choice too, because within the goal that you had set out, which was to do some sort of role-playing activity with the entire class.
Yeah.
The Scooby-Doo sort of story archetype kind of lends itself really nicely to this, because the arc is always like, there's a mystery that we need to solve. Here's the bad guy. Here's maybe the good people.
Yep.
We don't know who's who. Let's try and figure this out. And then, like the big reveal or
at the end.
The climax at the end.
Yeah.
So it kind of fits nicely into what you were trying to do.
Yes. And I liked the idea of the mystery. They always have, a red herring in the story, right? Where it's like someone you think it is, but it's not actually them. And then it always turns out to be just like some person who has some plight against somebody else. It's not like a real monster. It's just like someone in a costume, which I felt was very appropriate for the age group that I have, where it's like there's still choices and like some funny, weird things that you can get up to. But at the end of the day, it's still someone who has a legitimate reason or to be upset. The actions that they took are an interesting choice, but they still have a reason for why they're doing these things.
Right. Right. And it's always it's never actually a ghost. It's never actually, a zombie or something like that. It's always just the mask reveal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
My brother.
Yeah. It's a fun trope that there is. And I felt like Scooby-Doo, because they had a new series come out, felt very much like it could connect with them as well as me. I loved growing up in the 90s, Scooby-Doo, that song, I think it was Simple Plan who did the theme song, was like so great. And I just remember it so vividly from being a kid. And because of the new series, I'm like, oh, there's that connection.
Right.
Mind you, a lot of them were like, okay.
Well, at least you've presented with something that's not, from 50 years ago, right?
And it did, like we ended up, after we played our D&D game, watching an episode of Scooby-Doo. Not the one that I wanted to do, but the new series. And then some of them actually went home and binged watched the whole series. And then came back and were like, I'm into Scooby-Doo now. And I was like, great. I love that.
That's awesome.
Glad I can bring some joy back into the Scooby-Doo fandom,
We've got the characters. They are dressed in ways that are maybe appropriate to the archetypes that they've created.
Yep.
Now we're talking about like creating the story for them to play in.
Yeah.
And I think you had like a bit of an experience, like how detailed do you want to be? How much choice are they going to have?
At first I was like, okay, just like a loose Scooby-Doo story that I'm just going to make up and go from there. And I very quickly got overwhelmed with the amount of choices that I had, because I felt like I needed to plan for everything. So like, when they arrive, do they wait outside? Do they go in? Okay, if they go in, what do they hear versus what happens if they stay outside? And then if they stay outside, is it the choice to go around the building and look in, or is it to listen in at the door? And then what were the results of that? And then making the difficulties for each dice roll. And then remembering that there are 8 characters included in it. So I very quickly got overwhelmed. I think I tried like so many different versions of it. About like, okay, where could my story go? And I ended up adapting an actual episode of Scooby-Doo and just looking it through and be like, okay, what were the main points of this story? So they get there, there's a fight that happens that they overhear either the whole conversation or just the tidbit. They meet another family member. They find out the lore of the place, and they meet like a bus driver. I think we're like the five
Those
major,
are like the big beats. Of
the big beats of
Yeah.
the story. And so I kind of took that and then started looking at what were the decisions that the characters actually made in this series and what they led to it. And it's like, okay, and then I would add one more decision to that so that there could be a possibility of a different route. And like the day of, as we were playing, very quickly realized that just a lot of it was like, okay, this is actually the new decision, the new route we're going on. And from there, just deciding on that.
What I'm hearing you say is that like trying to guess the decisions is difficult.
Yes.
Because you don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
You can't really prepare for every branch of the story.
Yeah. But I also think it was really important to have choices at the beginning instead of just letting them go wild. Because I find, and I'm sure a lot of teachers find, sometimes when you're like, you can do whatever you want. They're like, I don't know. Like, what do you want to do? I don't know, sleep. And you're like, that's not an option. So really being like, okay, so it's the first thing's like, do you go in or do you wait inside?
Right.
Of
And
just
being descriptive. Like you have a couple of choices. Here's to
and kind
to
of
get them going.
At the beginning of telling them, okay, if you decide to stay outside, you may be able to overhear this conversation. If you decide to go in, you won't hear all of the conversation, but maybe people will be more willing to tell you things because they will see you and be like, okay, this person has introduced themselves. And then you start off on a good foot. And then again, the roles associated with that. So like if you pass or fail. So if I think I had them, are you going to listen into, you hear voices? Do you wait outside and listen into this conversation or do you walk in? And the failure of listening outside is that you stumble in and you burst through. And like the failure of walking in, I think I had the same failure for both, like messing up on listening to the conversation and bursting in. It's like you tumble in awkwardly for both of them.
Very Scooby-Doo-esque.
Yeah, exactly. Like
we're pushing against the door and the door collapses.
Yeah. And I think even before that, though, I think to just introduce them to the idea of dice rolling, I was like, you're driving in a car, you hear thunder, roll an athletics check. And then like you hit a sign or you keep going.
Right.
Was the kind of thing.
So you were teaching them what's going to happen later through like the first scene of the story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, really cool.
And I felt it important too to really have it set up at the beginning of like, you're already a group of investigators all together. You've already decided that you're going to do this together. And then you get, I think I started them off with a letter and I had a physical letter for them to read and I gave it to a student and she opened it and read it out loud. And it's like, you've decided to do this. Like you've still got the letter, but you've already decided to do this.
This is like you've learned this DM trick in front of a class of like 30 people, but the trick is you make the first couple of decisions for the group so that they're already bought in.
Yeah, exactly. And they had already known, I had prepped them in the sense that you are a Scooby-Doo kid.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like they knew that this was based off of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
And like myself and Jen, who was helping me, dressed up as Shaggy and Scooby the day of, just to really like add to the overall effect.
That's fantastic. Okay, so we're in the world, we're making decisions.
Yeah.
They're rolling and they're kind of like deciding what's happening. I'm assuming the class got like kind of wild during this time. How did you manage the story and keeping everyone kind of like moving forward?
Well, I had them at the beginning, it was a little wild, especially with decisions. What I had them do is really, they had to listen to what I was saying of like the choices. And at first when I started, it was more wild because I had them rolling 2 dice, like 2 different students were rolling dice. And because it was just the beginning, nobody was really good or bad at like driving. So I had them just take the higher of the 2 rolls because they were both rolling and very quickly realized that was not a good idea. And I had to kind of set the difficulty a little higher than what I initially anticipated. But they very quickly caught on that if they didn't listen, they missed important information. Because I think early on in the story, I had them get picked up by a tour guide. And one of the decisions they had to make was like, are you going to let this man talk or are you going to ask questions? Very simple, very basic. And they were all chatting and I had them vote. Like each group had 1 vote for their character, right? And that was kind of, I think in that point, they had, some of them were really good at letting people talk. So they decided to let people talk. And some got, I think it was like a 19 or 18 rolled on the D20, and they got more information than the other groups. But other groups didn't realize that they got more of this information because they were chatting. And then later on, as the story progressed, these other two groups who had gotten more information were like, oh yeah, because of this. And the rest of them were like, what do you mean? When did we get that information? They were like, when we were in the tour van.
Got it. And so those two, like, I guess, characters.
Yeah.
At those tables, you had them like writing down stuff too. They were like taking notes and kind of like listening and writing down what they were hearing.
Yeah, I made them a little worksheet that said investigators at the top. So it said like character names that you meet, their role, and possible motive. And I think I had enough for every character and maybe like a little extra space in case I made up one on the fly. And so I was having them write things down. And again, at the beginning, some of them weren't writing anything down because they're like, who cares? Like, we'll just figure it out. And then as it progressed,
more info comes.
Yeah. And they started to put together, oh, this is an actual mystery we need to solve. So I need to start like making connections between people. And going through it. So then they started using them more frequently. Some of them relied on just like one note taker in the group, which is fine. And I think moving forward, I might have that be a designated role for them. It was fun to see them starting to put pieces together.
Yeah. Okay. So in each one of these groups, the cool thing is that there's like two levels to this happening. There's like the character interaction between the groups of students. In each group, you have this conversation where they're trying to make decisions that match what their character's motives or archetype is.
Yes.
So what did you hear from them in those small groups that related to this like decision making that they were doing?
So a lot of them at the beginning were just kind of making whatever choices they wanted, and they were arguing a little bit. And then towards the end, I actually saw them referring a lot more to their character sheet and being like, no, hey guys, like we said we're good at this, like looking at our sheet, this is what we're good at. So we should do this because then we'll get this. And so there was a lot more thoughtful reflection, especially to some of my students who aren't normally very invested in my class. The ones that are more like to pace around my classroom were a lot more focused. And they were the ones who were like, that motion of going back and forth and like reading the things on their character sheets was really important to them. They were like, no, guys, we can't do this because of this and this reason. So I saw them reasoning a lot more and trying to think of like creative ways to do things. So I had them set a trap at the end and asked them, I think this was the most freedom I gave them of like, what do you contribute to this trap? And so like some of them really consulted their sheet and being like, okay, so we're the Velma character. We're very smart. We're going to figure out the plans for this place and like draw out a layout for it. And it's like, that makes sense with your character. And they reference their sheet. Great. You're going to roll for this and you have advantage. So 2 of you roll and you're going to take the higher one. And then there were some groups that were like, okay, this would be good for the trap, but didn't take their character into effect. I think one of them wanted to get like a ghost device or something like, I don't remember exactly what it was. It was like a device and they were like, I want to say the like Shaggy character. And I was like, okay, you're not good at that, but are you sure that's what you want to do? Yes. And they rolled and took the lower and it was like, it may work. You don't know.
But the beauty of that is like you've leaned in.
Yes.
Shaggy made a bad decision.
Yeah.
Shaggy tried to discover something that he's not good at discovering.
Yeah.
And what's the like comic relief that comes out of that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think another group that was like a Scooby-Doo group wanted to do like a fun dance to like distract the ghost. And they failed miserably. I think they rolled a 1. And I was like, I don't know what you're doing. Everybody else is setting up a trap and you're dancing in a corner. And like, it was those funny moments that they had that was really...
That's like the beauty of the role, right? Is that you get an outcome that's not what you want, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad outcome.
Yeah.
You just have to sort of like play into the outcome.
Yeah.
Dancing in the corner, that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it ended up being that there was, for this particular one, there was two bad guys, right? And so one got away and they caught another one. And so that like dancing was like, you alerted the other person that you were there and they ran off because you were dancing in a corner and they were like, there's people here.
Right. Well, let's talk about like the climax at the end. So they've gone through the story.
Yes.
They've made some decisions. You've sort of been there to kind of like play the bumper to kind of like get them back onto the story with all of their decisions. I remember hearing a story about one of the characters wanted to like punch someone.
Oh, yes.
And there was a bit of like a controversy or they decided it was a bad idea. What happened there?
So I think it was before they set the trap, they were still kind of learning the lore of the area. And fully, I had set it up as like, this was the red herring of like the person who was going to be the one that they didn't know if they were good and bad. And they were like in this Airbnb or this B&B, I don't remember exactly what it was. And there was like a thundering noise that came afterwards. And so this was, okay, what do you do? What does your character do? There's someone walking towards you. You're hearing thundering noise. What do you do? And a lot of them were like, run and hide, right? As the Shaggy and Scooby characters. And I think that one was, it was the Daphne character that was like, no, I want to like fight this person. And because this was an individual choice, this wasn't a group effort, everybody rolled their own things. It's like, okay, you've successfully hidden, you've taken a step back. And then this group rolled and they rolled a natural 20. Of like
a critical success.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do. You perfected what you wanted to do.
And so in that moment, I explained to them, okay, we haven't encountered this before. It's a natural 20. It means it's a critical success. So in this moment, just this moment, I'm going to let you pick what you do to this person that is coming towards you.
You're inviting the chaos now.
Yeah. And so they had like a short discussion in their group of like, okay, well, this person's scary. Like, we have to fight them. So we're going to punch them in the face. It's like, okay, are you sure you want to do this? Yeah, we want to punch them in the face. And I was like, okay, they're thundering towards you and you turn and you punch them square across the face. And then they were like, the character, the non-player character, the NPC, started yelling back at them. And then they got into this like little altercation and found out that this person was actually like the brother of the owner of this location. And she came in and kind of like the owner came in and like calmed it down, but then kicked them out. So they lost a lot of other information that they could have gotten from there.
Right. So it's a critical success.
Yeah.
In what you wanted to do, but your action still had consequences.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like they were talking about it afterwards and they were like, well, we learned as much as we could have. And I was like, oh no, there was so much more that you could have found out. Like that character was a red herring and you would have found out that they're like selling their family's things to get more money for this location. And you could have followed them out into the graveyard and seen all these other things. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. I was like, you didn't get the chance to because you punched someone in the place. And like a real world consequence of that is you get kicked out. Like they're not going to be like, yeah, stay for dinner, punch some more people. Like they're going to kick you out of this location. And so really having that application of like, yeah, sure, you did what you wanted to, but the bigger consequence was that you didn't learn as much information as you could have from this location and had to go somewhere else. It's like an option you hadn't explored before was now your only option because that's what happens.
Yeah, it's like such a perfect encapsulation of like what happens in D&D too.
Yeah.
Like you can sometimes make a decision that you succeed on, but it's not great for the rest of the party or the rest of the story, or you lose access to a part of, the world that you're trying to learn about. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic like little example of how this this way of storytelling has like can tell this. What am I trying to say here? It can react to the students' choices.
Yeah, for
sure. You had stuff written, but you didn't give it to them because they made a choices of to not go that way.
Yeah. And I think that was the big point where I was like, oh, a lot of the information that I wrote down to make it doesn't apply now because I have to have a consequence for them punching someone in the face.
Of course.
I can't just let them keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I guess like the skill of the DM on your side is like, I still need to give them this information, but maybe I need to give it to them through a different character. Yeah.
And instead of them learning that stuff about the brother, then they went to another character who was also under suspicion because he wanted to buy, I think he had a nearby theme park and wanted to expand. And like going to talk to him and realizing, oh, hey, people aren't actually staying here. And he's also in financial trouble. So instead of learning that bit about the brother, then they learned that about the amusement park person and like figured out, okay, so they're also not benefiting from the situation either. So different information was relayed. And it was, again,
like from your perspective, you need to give them parts of the story
Yes.
to move it forward.
Yeah.
But from their perspective, they feel like, the consequence of the action. They feel the mystery needs to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
They feel the need to to explore somewhere else.
Yeah.
So like the reaction on their side, you've created this sort of like emotion in them.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like I know stories can do that with just reading a book, but
Yes.
For them to impact the story and make changes like that and then have to like face the consequences is such a cool experience. Did you hear anything from your students about like that feeling or that like having to react in a way that maybe wasn't what they expected?
I think they really liked the opportunity to be able to punch someone hypothetically.
Of course.
And they were very excited to get about that. And again, like I said, when we were talking about it later and telling them that there were other options, being surprised that they had missed out on something and not really realizing, oh, there was actually more we could have done in this location. And they were like, well, it kind of sucked to just like all of a sudden be forced on this other route because they had exhausted all the things in the place because they had done this action. So it was interesting to see them kind of processing, not in the moment, but afterwards of like, oh.
Reflecting on it.
Yeah.
What was that reflection process like? So you've kind of gone through this whole story with them.
Yeah.
How long did that take? Like how long was telling the actual story?
We did it all in a day.
Okay. So you maybe a couple of hours to get through the whole thing?
Yeah. I want to say we started at like 9 o'clock of just like the setup and everything. I had the classroom already set up prior to them coming in. So like on my board, I had a picture of the manor or B&B or whatever I had called it, of just like a Google Images picture with like a little graveyard in the front. I had like rain playing in the background to really just get them set up. And I had a bunch of sound effects queued up on my computer of like a door opening or thunder or whatever it was. So really having that ready for them first thing in the morning and then still coming in and doing our morning routine, good morning, sit down, praying and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think it took all day. I think in my mind, I was like, we're only going to go till lunch. And then they're going to have religion and another class I think they had. And I was like, and we're going to be done. It'll be great. And then we'll review it in the afternoon. No, we had to pause during religion. And they were like, kind of bummed about pausing, which I was like, great. I love that.
From your perspective, you're like, okay, we've got more to do after this.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it took like a whole day.
Yeah, an entire day.
And then you did like a reflection class after
Yes.
where you had them think about like the decisions they made, the character, how they worked in groups.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that you were like surprised you from your students? What were some of the things that your students surprised you with?
One of them really wanted to do another game, which I was very excited about.
Okay.
And like, I think they had good reflections on their group work, talking about like, oh, at the beginning, we didn't really work as a team or really reference our character. We just kind of all did whatever we wanted. And then afterwards, we started looking more at what our character would do and talking more about it and having those more thoughtful discussions, almost like they wanted to give reasons as to why they were doing things and like reflecting on decisions that they made. So some of them were like, I thought it was really cool that we punched this person. I would have maybe not built a ghost busting device and tried something different. Like I thought it was really funny that we danced and scared this person away. So there was like reflection on the actions. I think that was really good and meaningful.
Within the groups, I remember reading some of the reflections and some of the students had said things like, I thought we should have done this, but my group said we should have done that. And we had to come to some sort of like consensus.
Yes.
Was that surprising? Did you expect to hear that kind of thing?
Yeah, I did expect to hear that kind of thing because I knew that they're not all the same. They don't all have the same thinking. So I knew some of the groups, I was like, there's one person in this group who has a stronger opinion or stronger voice than some of the other ones. And I was interested to see how that would play out. And I knew that there would be some discussion or arguments within them, but it seemed like they solved them on their own. I think I really only had to step in once and kind of talk to them. But I also encouraged them to like, if you have a disagreement, vote on it in your group.
Yeah.
And if it's
part of it.
Yeah. And if it's an even vote, then like leave it up to chance. Like,
you've got dice.
Roll a dice.
Roll a dice. Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's really cool. I think at some point we had talked about them creating their own games after this.
Yes.
Or doing something where they step into the DM role and create like a branching story.
Yes.
Yeah. What is your, after this class ended, what were your takeaways to like bring this into the next project? Maybe even with this class this year.
Yeah. So right after we finished this, because it was part of our short stories unit, I had them create their own characters. And then they wrote a short story with 2 different endings based on a major character choice.
Very cool.
And so that was really interesting to see because they really did it all in parts, right? So they built their character first, then they decided on a setting and a conflict. Then we talked about mood and so forth with all of that. So that was really fun to see. I think moving forward from this, I would love to play more of these games throughout the year, incorporating them into different things that we're doing. So like we've just finished doing a novel. So it would have, not this year, but it would be fun to do another game based on the novel that we just read. And maybe not that exact plot, but it's those characters in like a day of the novel or things like that. I also really love the idea of using it for social studies, which I've tried to do, but I can't exactly figure out the kinks to that one. And I think my goal would be to do some type of D&D game based on early civilizations, and you're like picking a particular civilization and running a game based on it. But again, haven't figured out the logistics of that just yet.
Yeah, it's an interesting, like the way that you can build stories in D&D does feel like limitless.
Yeah.
So you can kind of bring in content from any sort of world. The ancient civilization one is interesting because you could, it's a great way to just put somebody in a world and get them to make decisions based on the things that are happening around them. And those ancient civilization worlds are, they're quite different from today.
Yeah.
There's different decisions that need to be made.
Yeah.
But the characters that you play are all still human, and they all still have like, basic needs and like desires to do things. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of angle. I know one of my coworkers, Carlo, is working with another teacher on doing something like this within like the fur trade of, I think this is grade 4. Yeah, in grade 4. So they're doing some of that decision making, specifically around like, what would you pack if you're going to go, track across Canada? What can you put in your backpack? And you have a limit. And so you're kind of like gamifying or making decisions based on these decisions that need to be made in this world that you're unfamiliar with, that you're learning about. Awesome takeaways. You had mentioned that you wanted to run this in your storytelling curriculum at the beginning of the school year. How would you do this again next year? What would you change this specific project?
I think for this specific project, I think the character creation and the way that I run the game would change. I liked it as being part of a short story unit because you can really talk about setting and all of those things within the storytelling. And it might be a little bit more of a collaborative process of like, okay, this is setting. This is how we create setting. We'll look at it in a short story. Okay, we're going to create a setting as a class. What will that look like? And kind of doing a little bit more collaboratively. And I think also having them have their characters on their desks, because this year I had them up on the wall, which had them running back and forth quite a bit. And I think being more clear on strengths and weaknesses, I think that would be a big thing to do, and just having them reference that a lot more and how that looks like. I also wouldn't give them as many dice as I did.
Right.
I think they only needed a D20, and I gave them a D20, a D10, a D12, I gave them all the dice.
Oh yeah.
And so it was just like a lot of the like low noises on the table that at one point I was like, it's driving me crazy.
Oh, it's definitely a thing. I know at one of the schools that I support, during their D&D club, they do it in the library, and we've gotten to the point where we're just putting like felt on the table, making it a soft surface because the dice noises won't stop. They're always going to be there, but at least we can muffle them on a soft surface.
Yeah, and I might even do like an art project of like creating a like dice tray all together as like something else that incorporates it. Because I love the idea of cross-curricular things and doing things that go multiple different subjects, right? And like, my dream would be to theme my different things around one thing. So like building as like my term one. And it's building storytellers, the building short stories, the beginnings of civilizations, of building that, building your ideas and your careers for career education and so forth. So I like the idea of having themes for units. I haven't been able to accomplish it yet. I have like little bits and pieces, but that idea of like building is like the first thing, and then you do all these things that kind of fall under that. And then the next one is, I don't know.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Sounds like a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay. So this project seems to be something that I would say was a success.
I think so.
Yeah. What advice do you have for like other teachers that might want to try something like this? Like if you were going to another grade 7 teacher who was like, I want to run this exactly the way that you did, what are some things that you would tell them?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would probably say you don't have to start from scratch. Like find something that you enjoy, like any story that you like that you could
find your Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, find your Scooby-Doo. Exactly. And like just something that you enjoy first and then bring that into the classroom. I would say talk about it with the students, let them know like the ideas behind it, because a lot of them will be new to the idea of D&D, and just be very open about like what it is, why you're doing it, and kind of give them examples of things that you've done or that you've seen other people do. Yeah, and just have fun, I think is the thing. Is the big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say play D&D.
Yes.
At least once.
Yeah, or watch something that has
Do you have
D&D
any recommendations for games that you watch? I know you said you watched or listened to D&D before you played it.
Yes.
What did you listen to first?
I listened to a lot of Critical Role.
Classic.
Yeah. The campaign 2 specifically, I think I listened to. I watched some Dropout ones.
Dimension 20?
Yeah. The Dimension 20 ones. I think the one where they were all like little ferrets. I don't remember what it was called.
Honestly, there's so many of those
There's
seasons now.
so many. But I think it was the DM was a Bria, so it wasn't even like their main dungeon master.
She's great.
Yeah.
She's really fun.
Yeah. And just like see a lot of the different, I watched a lot of the different styles there are. And I think I watched a lot of one shots of just like random ones on YouTube, because I love storytelling, and I find the idea of moving and being in your body a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think before we started recording, you had mentioned that like coming in confident and just like being in front of the class and just embracing the character really like helps get some buy-in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So there is an element of like performance.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Teaching has that element in it. This is just like a very distilled sort of directed performance.
Yeah. And like really playing up those like non-player characters is like something different, and even just like the embodiment of them. I like did an accent for one of them. No other character had that accent, not even her brother, but she had an accent. And I thought that was fun. And like just even your own physicality, right? Of like getting into the mindset of those characters. Like she was the owner was very like flouncy and very like maybe more like performative, whereas like someone like the owner of the arcade was more of like the Southern gentleman that was like very like bleh, I hate people but I need to make money kind of situation. So like having maybe like one or two quirks in mind for those characters I think is a lot of fun, and just like dressing up as the character. Not Scooby-Doo was the story, but we didn't play Scooby-Doo. wasn't Scooby-Doo. I was inspired by.
It was an homage.
Yeah. And it was also really funny because it took them a second to realize that I was dressed as Scooby-Doo and Jen was Shaggy. Like I was fully in like an all brown outfit, and I had two little Scooby ears, and then I had the collar that had the SD in the center. And like I could understand if I was like Shaggy or something else, but I wore ears. Yeah. And it took them like maybe till lunch to be like, oh my gosh, you're Scooby-Doo. And I was like, yup.
Yes.
I am interested to know that my teacher persona is like, if I wore ears, they'd be like, yeah, that's fine. Miss Berlanga does that all the time.
Well, this is fantastic. I mean, it feels like the way that you bring your interests into the classroom, like obviously your students are not surprised by it because you show up dressed as a dog and they're like, yep, that's not unnatural for this classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
I've often said that really, aside from the theming in my classroom, it's to like just really make my whole curriculum a game. and have different ways that I can incorporate fun things into the projects in my classroom. So I'm really looking for that vibe, I think, of my class of being like, you can be yourself and be silly, but still be here to learn.
That's incredible. Well, I think this has been an amazing conversation about this project, and I'm really excited to hear what you do with it next year. I'm sure we're going to get all the versions of this going forward.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing this project with us. Would you be open to sharing some of your resources with people who listen to this podcast?
Oh, of course.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure that some of those things are available to our listeners. Patricia, this has been great. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you all the critical successes moving forward.
Thank you so much.
Are you interested in running a class like Patricia? Then you should join me this summer at the Deeper Learning Canada Conference on July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in Chilliwack, BC, where I'll be hosting a deep dive on role-playing games as storytelling. In my deep dive, I invite you to experience what happens when stories are co-created with learners rather than delivered to them. You'll engage in hands-on tabletop role-playing games as a form of collaborative storytelling. Through playful, low-barrier role-playing experiences, you'll step into the role of the learner, making decisions, negotiating meaning, inhabiting perspectives, and collectively shaping a narrative in real time. Check out the show notes to get your tickets. You can also find links to the articles we wrote about Patricia's project in our newsletter, The Classroom Chronicles, where you'll also find over 100 stories about the creative projects we've helped make a reality in classrooms just like yours. Thanks for joining us, and remember to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcatcher. See you next time.